Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the reigning world champion, the Terran in the blue, the Frenchman from Team Liquid. It's Clem. Facing off against the Zerg player voted most likely to raise my blood pressure. In the red, we have SHIN. In a best of 3, Terran versus Zerg showdown between Clem's near-perfect Terran and SHIN's endless Zerg rushes. It'd be awesome if we could start out with an endless Zerg rush towards that like button. And maybe even subscribe. Help me count the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we? No cringing. 1,659 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As SHIN switching it up, a pool first here on Killer's Mile, one of our community maps. And 3 hatches behind, but a queen already here to make the Reaper's life difficult. And apparently, very short, as the queen, able to help take out that very first Reaper. Clem knew it was a pool first. He knew that there'd be a queen out. He knew there could be Zerglings. And still the hubris of this Frenchman knows no bounds. He's gotten away with so much in his career. You might argue carried by those Terran units, but I'd argue carrying those units across the map and using them so well is what's gotten him to this point. But to overly read into that first Reaper, SHIN cutting him down a few notches here. And sneaking the Zerglings across, I think mostly just trying to keep them hidden and make sure they don't get taken out behind. But already a bit of an interesting start, considering Clem, oh, he's sneaking the second get. Well, I don't know if sneaking is the right word, but building the second gas already at the natural. He does have the 3cc on the way. But SHIN, instead opting... Well, it is somewhat rare. Some players decide to just build the second gas there because it's more efficient for the early workers to be building in the main, but we'll see if that translates into anything. That's the gas that's least likely to be scouted by an Overlord. Though it wouldn't be a huge surprise to see Cloaked Banshees and Hellions now, would it? That's been a staple of this matchup for the overwhelming majority of Clem's life, so. A dozen Zerglings on the way, kind of a surprising amount just to deal with these first Hellions. SHIN may very well try to catch him, maybe bait him in. Fool me once. Will Clem get fooled again? The Zerglings with the wraparound, and there we go. Takes out one. The second one can get chased out easily, and not once, but twice. Clem has gone too far, he's dug too deep, and he's dug too greedily. And now the Zerglings are sneaking in as well. Slams the door shut in their face, but let's be honest, they already saw everything they needed to see. Gonna get in, get around, and eventually get incinerated. But we all die someday. On that note, Lair is on the way. Spotted the cloak in production, or the very likely cloak. Going to get the relatively quick Lair that is usually invested in to counter it. And SHIN relatively safe past this point. Shutting down the first 2 Hellions and Reaper, as well as getting this confident scout, means he can get to 60-something drones. He can box out the first Banshee, and he can be relatively fine as time goes on. The Hellion's trying to come in again. Almost takes out another, the one that, yeah, those guys, no. Came home, told its friends what happened here. They're all angry about it, but that doesn't mean they can do anything to turn it around. Clem with the double engineering bay, double racks, adding production, but double evo chamber not to be outdone. SHIN also focusing. We're going straight into a macro game. 4 more gases on the way for SHIN. There, completed. Roach Warren done as well. 4th base under fire, and I mean that literally. Over to the 9 o'clock position. The Banshee holding for the alternative 4th. Roach speed is on the way. SHIN reaching for the Roaches despite kind of the lack of early aggression. We'll see how far he decides to invest in them. Roaches and Ravagers are lower risk than Ling Bane. Also potentially lower reward. It really depends. Infestation Pit is already on the way. Potentially a rush to Hive. And... oh, both Banshees get out, but the Hellions are shut down over to the left side. The Queen defense team split besides on both sides of the base so far. Huge Zergling counter may have slipped out unchecked. There's enough Marines back at home to help deal with it, but a lot of the SCVs potentially vulnerable. Clem reacts very quickly, loses a grand total of 1, gets a mule, delays a supply depot, but really not much to show for it, Clem. A very quick reaction time, and now is chasing down the Zerglings with those Hellions. Out for revenge. Roach is on the way. Baneling nest and a hive has begun. SHIN sprinting up the tech tree. Less than 7 minutes to start a hive. He's got 73 drones. A booming economy. And for now, Clem, unable to contest it. The first 2 medevacs are coming out. He's going to have the 1-1 upgrades. Combat shield is on the way. Stim already completed. And an armory to follow it up. So Clem, not all in. Not overly invested in one big attack. But he's still going to be dangerous. When 1-1 is done, he's got siege tanks. And I'm sure he'll come up with something to make those siege tanks look infuriatingly difficult to deal with. On any map that hasn't really been figured out, that isn't played as often, like this one, players like Clem have a tendency to find those cheeky locations to put their siege tanks or liberators that really effectively do QA testing for the maps that Blizzard hasn't done in probably like a decade. Meanwhile, medevacs, politely yet firmly, asked to leave by the knitting needles of the queens. Hive is nearly completed, and we're all asking ourselves that question. Have you liked and subscribed? And does SHIN, has he gotten over his adrenal glands allergy and decided to try to win the game? Or does he still count himself as a conscientious objector? Good scan from Clem. We'll see that the hive is done. It can't have been done for long, just mathematically. The fact it is at all, a 3rd evolution chamber is on the way. Gonna go for the triple upgrade Zerg up against that mass marine tank bio. Some Hellbats added in now that the armory's completed. No adrenal glands for SHIN, but that's par for the course right now. Clem with 104 army supply, SHIN with 104 army supply. I doubt it'll be so even after this. The Zerglings, counterattack. Gonna cut off some of the reinforcements, but Clem coming forward, looking to bash into the 4th base. Some of the corrosive bows will land. This choke point looking a bit difficult. 22 banelings on the way. Cuts off some of the siege tanks on retreat. Just moving forward. Beautiful split. A few Marines will catch the corrosive bows, but the vast majority able to still stay in position to assault this base. The upgrades are even. The supplies as well. SHIN doesn't have too many alternatives, but the Vipers could definitely turn the tide. Clem takes out one of his own medevacs. Just a very sporting move of him. Blinding Cloud, one of the tanks, 2, and a big chunk of the bio, and suddenly the tide has immediately turned. The Vipers go back to consuming. The Roaches and Ravagers overrun the field. The Zerglings underneath gonna fill in the gaps, but the reinforcements have come back across, and so have the Banshees, which have been repaired. Clem shut down for now, but not knocked out by any means. The Overseer's there. The Banshees back for more, but the Queens, they've had to get over here and get off my creep! Brenda, just calm down. There's still siege tanks. Yeah, let me have this, Susan. Ultraless Cavern on the way. And adrenal glands as well as SHIN actually wants to win this game. Getting the rest of the Zerg hive tech. And SHIN, 20 supply up. Adrenal glands again. A little bit of everything, but SHIN filling in the gaps in that late game play. Going to have the strongest potential melee army. He got that 3rd evolution chamber. I don't know if he remembers it. Queen's still struggling to push the creep out. Clem's done an incredible job of holding it down. And now, Titanus plating on the way. Adrenal glands over 2/3 of the way done. 50 Zerglings on the field, 2 Ultras in production. Clem not maxed out, but he's got a 4th base ready to go. Adding the Marauders into the composition. How's the Ghost Academy? It doesn't exist. Alright. Terran education has suffered. Well, excuse me for scribbling, but I can barely write my name. Ghost Academy. Now on the way. I think realizing that this may go further than the kind of mid-game composition, the advanced mid-game that the Marines and tanks excel at. As SHIN showing A lot of competence with those Vipers and a willingness to keep them going. 3 Vipers with full energy are pretty much enough to be the crowbar of Zerg that just pries open a base or, well, maybe just beat you over the head with it. Either way, between Parasitic Bomb, Abduct, and Blinding Cloud, it's hard to go wrong with those Viper spells. What do we have back here? Are those changelings? Of course they are. Lings and Banes, but the Overlord going to be spotted. Cancels all of the Banelings. Shin at a casual 1000 APM against Clem's just lackluster 475. What a casual. I can't stress how ridiculously fast that is, especially for Terran. But still, what a casual. Ghosts added into production. Command centers as well. Clem starting to build the Iron Bank, and Shin seems relatively content to let him do so. He hasn't switched up the tech. There's the Spire. Not for Mutas. No. But instead, likely for Corruptors, in order to wipe out anything in the sky, as Clem thinking about the sky as well. The Fleet Beacon, no. Fusion Core is on the way. Unlikely to be for battle cruisers, though one can dream. Queen assassinated, but Baneling's turn. Right on those Marines. Now the 6 o'clock under fire, birthed into existence and almost immediately taken down. But will be saved. Double Parasitic Bomb. There's no, well, it doesn't stack. Much to the dismay of Zergs, but that'll be about 2/3, 3/4 of the health on those medevacs. Strong gust of wind might be able to take them out, but I doubt Clem is going to let that happen. 120 to 112 army supply. Both sides have been relatively unchecked economically. The y-axis, not really that much. The dramatic swings are pretty much one mule returning its minerals. The Ultras and Banelings trying to crash through. The Planetary going to be the target. Melted. That base by the acid. And now, Shin, he's found his focal point. This is the Anvil Zerg style, where you just keep building and smashing. Ideally, a 4th base, that's not going to happen. A 5th base. If it goes past 5 bases, you just got to settle in for the supreme late game. But if you can keep smashing the Terran's 5th, even if it costs you significantly more resources, eventually you will break the bank, and they will no longer have the economy. The main base is mining out, especially since mules were used earlier. The gas is starting to dry up. The second base is not doing much better. By the time you get to 15, 16, 17... Okay, stop. 15-ish minutes. That's when it starts to be strained a little more. Now you see Shin 3K, 2K. To Clem's 1K, 1K in the bank. Shin has lost 4,000 more resources. Those medevacs, okay. He repaired them enough. Shin, the only building Shin has lost is a single spore. Of course, Clem has only lost a sensor tower, a turret, and a planetary, so that wasn't as dramatic a comparison as I originally thought it would be. But here we are. If I say it dramatically, it doesn't matter what I'm saying, all right? What matters is I say it with confidence, all right? I might have no confidence at all. In fact, I have no idea why anybody's listening to that. Sometimes I don't even remember what I'm saying in the middle of the cast. I just assume it was both appropriate, profound, and entertaining. Like, at some point, I beg people to like and subscribe. At some point, I commentate on the game. But honestly, at least 50% of the time, I could rewatch my cast and be surprised at what I said. Hopefully not this part, because it's super meta if that's the case. But here we are. 15 minutes in. Base is drying up. Clem needs to move out, but the snipes are lined up and knock out the Ultralists. Drop to the north side. Marines scrambling back as an overwhelming number of Banelings and Zerglings just rip them apart. The Ghost in position, but everything behind it, and there's no way going between a rock and a hard place there. Caduceus Reactor. Advanced Ballistics is already done for the Liberators. Liberator range. Caduceus Reactor. Medevac energy regen doubled. Pretty good. Neural Parasite is on the way for Shin. The Changelings gunned down. Clem spotting him. Shin with a casual 723 APM. Clem is only upped it by about 10, while Shin 40. Just so many units. He's only lost 200 Zerglings, which is kind of surprising overall, but that's just the beginning. Whoa, losing a chunk of the bio. And Shin building up that bank and starting to consume the map. Overseers, making sure he has enough, and some changelings. We're not yet at oversight committee levels when there's so many overseers. Changelings start to outnumber the Terrans themselves. I don't think I've ever seen SHIN try that style. That roguelike strategy. Does he have burrow? Yes. Kind of surprised he hasn't tried any Bane mines yet either, but... Clem, trying to clear things out. That 5th base smash is no longer seeming to be a viable strategy. As Clem has secured the base and now is going for base number 6. Over to the 420 location, we'll call it. The Zerglings. Oh, killing his own SCVs. Clem! It's cold-hearted, but effective. I always criticize players for sending their SCVs to their death. Clem, but still, I'm going to criticize Clem for obliterating his own SCVs to free up supply. All right, how heartless, how cold. All right, taking advantage of that anti-Clem sentiment. Doesn't even care about his blue mineral workers, just trying to replace everything with automation. How cliche. Of course, when you do have 13 orbital command. We can scan the entire map and still have some mules up to... Okay, not quite, but close enough. As the banks build the Olympic rings of freedom. Quite a Venn diagram. Banelings rolling in. Gonna take out a few more SCVs. I feel like at this point, Clem rebuilding SCVs is entirely by reflex. You only really need like 40 or 50, I think, at the 13 orbital command. 40 SCVs is plenty. All right, we got to do some downsizing here. The mining can be replaced by mules. The SCVs are for mining gas. There was a few weeks in the Legacy of the Void beta where we tested mules mining gas. And yeah, that broke everything, even more than mules already do. So that's why it doesn't exist, by the way. The SCV lobby and also everyone else hated it. But imagine, then you'd only need 20 SCVs in the endgame. SHIN tries to break through, but he ends up broken down. He lost a Viper, 40 lings, 4 wait, there's rocks? There's a rock tower here, and Clem cuts off the potential flank. How many ghosts? A dozen ghosts. As things slowing down. $16 corruptors on the way. More mules dropping. Income actually in favor. Does he have a greater spire? Yeah, SHIN has made his spire great again. Clem has walled off his siege tanks, but he noticed immediately. I think his siege tank down here is actually a choke point. Hilariously. More ultras, lings, and banes. A few ghosts caught in the crossfire. The upgrades exactly the same amount on both sides. It's kind of crazy. Like the physical amount of upgrades. As they've both pretty much gotten the, what? It looks like a run by of... Oh, this was the base that was softened up earlier, so just a bit of bio was all that was needed. Wait. I need to see. A single marauder. Yep. Just ran in from the other side. What a hero. I believe Clem is killing more of his SCVs. He currently has 26 mules on the field. As Mount Mule climbs into the stratosphere. And the wealth gap begins to widen. Mass Vikings. In order to, well, anticipating the potential switch to Broodlords. Ultras. Scouting Ultra? As we've reached the supreme late game. The lines are drawn. Somewhat literally with the sensor towers, but... Thors and Vikings. Quite a... Well, the old gods have once again potentially... Nate, no Thors. I'm anticipating Thors. We're gonna see Broodlords. I want Thors. I desperately want Thors, please. For the first time in so long. Vikings and ghosts are usually still good enough. unfortunately. But if we get Mass Broodlord, Thors are a remarkable counter. Even though it kind of seems like they're vulnerable to many things. Not enough. Not enough. I'm just... Still so many Zerglings sprinting across the field. The mules dropping from orbit. I assume that's where. It's pretty far out. Just kind of appear at a certain distance, but things slow down as we get closer and closer to the bean counter phase, and Clem has collected many beans. 10,000 minerals. As the mules, well, the mule peak has carved its place in the income tab, though he's running out of mineral patches. The main is completely dried up, the second base as well. SHIN's following it momentarily. The third base for Clem, 500 gas, 60 minerals. Ooh, but SHIN overrunning the low ground. The corruptor count, well, cut down dramatically by the Vikings and the Ghosts, but he blasts through the base. At what cost, though? 9 more overlords have to be built, making sure he has enough overlords to actually, well, he's supply blocked at 160. The backbone of spine crawlers here not going to be enough to break through. Wow, Clem with like an idealized Terran army. He's got... Has he cut out more? One way to make sure you know what all the changelings are is just not have any Marines. There's one... That's Big Gabe right there. All right, Hero Marine. The only Marine on the map. 15 Ghosts, 14 Vikings, 13 Siege Tanks. And adding in more Liberators. Going to be up to 7. Mass Missile Turret as well coming together. The TPM, the turrets per minute, begins to raise. The mules. Clem just trying to mine out the map so he can scan permanently. He's 15 orbital commands. He has enough command over an entire solar system at this point. This is obscene. More scans than a Costco self-checkout. And I don't think he's going to need to ask for an assistant. I don't even know. It does. I swear it doesn't save time. Like every other person. No, just why you all you have are but I know it's just bananas. How hard could it be and how much could they cost? I don't know. Gets out change. I'm not here to judge. Okay, a little bit. I don't have places to be. I have a hot dog to eat. Should have eaten the hot dog at the start, but... Well, the pro tip is eating the hot dog to start, because that way you won't impulse buy nearly as much. That's not true. I still will. Alright, but... Maybe not quite as much. But no, the hot dog is the treat for finishing. And then possibly regretting some of the things you bought. But still, it is known. My point is, do not try to pay with cash at the automated checkout, all right? Unless you're Clem and you have 15 orbital commands. Not sure how that ties into everything, but another volley of scans comes out. SHIN, there's still... Only one of these gas gassers has been mined at all. SHIN with only 4,500 gas in the bank. Fungal catches the ghosts, obliterates them. The siege tanks, I think, doing more there than the... Yeah, Clem killed 4 ghosts. SHIN killed 1 in that fight. Ghost doesn't quite land the snipe. But the actual struggle here is partially the amount of overlords he has to rebuild. So far, SHIN has lost 19 overseers and 10 overlords. I guess amounting to like 3 to 4k minerals is not that huge, but Clem has a bank of 14,000 minerals. The rocks have not been taken down. SHIN has expanded to the north side, which I'm surprised Clem didn't slap a siege tank down there or something. SHIN still mining, still a slight advantage. Gotta be careful. The scans can keep tabs on pretty much everything. The ghosts, not here to protect it, but if you overstay your welcome, the ghosts will line up their shots and knock down a whole bunch of the corruptors, so... Another ghost. So, slowly but surely, SHIN is picking away at this unit composition, but the mass missile turret... Clem, I don't think is going to let this actually mine at all. It would be incredibly surprising. 8 Brood Lords! SHIN finally and begrudgingly admitting that something like Brood Lords is going to be needed. There we go, the double siege. Clem going to take the 6 o'clock base. SHIN, the 12 o'clock. Though, not sure if he's going to be able to hold on to that 12 o'clock. Scandinavia Vikings up there. Fungaling mules, which takes quite a bit. The Brood Lords have finally arrived. A lot of the ghosts in a vulnerable position. The Infestors in a good spot. The Vikings trying to move up. Ghost will cloak. SHIN very aware of this. Throws out a fungal, loses one of the Infestors. And Hydra lunge, another volley, knocks out one of the broods, but used every ghost snipe on one. The siege tank's doing a huge number via the broodlings on this big fungal on the Vikings, but unable to follow it up. 64 more. Oh, misses the fungal and gets his infestor popped. SHIN trying to break through. And here we are again. Infestor Broodlord. The broodlings. Ooh. Draws it in. Throws an EMP. Without fungal to interrupt the snipes, it gets... Base was taken out to the north. Clem still has a planetary here to the south. As the lines are drawn. The Vikings. Parasitic bomb, but EMP. And Exis. Oh, big fungal! That's huge! He catches him again! Gets 6, 7, 8 ghosts! Bites through, and now how many ghosts are left? 9, which is still a lot, but not the unbreakable number. 9 more Broodlords on the way. Thor! I thought it would happen. I hoped it would happen. I dreamed. It would. I prayed. And now it's happening. Thor's on the way. As Clem searching for more stable means to take out the broods. SHIN is locked. Well, that's certainly one way to handle it. 10 more overlords in production. Clem still has so much money in the bank. He's been, wow, 20,000 resources more cost effective. Ghost, is there a nuke? He doesn't have a nuke. He's just looking for EMPs, I guess. Scan. Oh my. Gets a Viper in the heart of the swarm. No, he gets 2! Oh! That ghost. Eventually gets canceled like its namesake of a game, but... What a disaster. Losing both Vipers. Has to rebuild them. That gives Clem enough time to potentially just mine this base out. He's still got the mule. SHIN starting to run out of money. He's gonna long distance mine the gas geyser. The Broodlord counted 16. How many Vikings? 13 Vikings. Another volley takes out a few more overseers. But Clem now has 8,000 more minerals. He needs to... SHIN needs to catch the army. He needs to catch the ghosts and the Vikings. It's almost impossible to... yeah, SHIN looking for anything else on the map. But we are running out of minerals and gas. There's not that many bases here. And Clem sees it with his sensor tower. He can just scan the whole map. The Hydras looking for something. The Broodlords raining down. The Ghost looking to line up some shots, but the Broodlings will spot him. Spore Crawler moving up. Queen, Brandon, no! Might be able to knock out the Liberator. Does. Ghost line up some shots, but hit the Overseers, the tag team, on top of the long-distance mining base. The grind will continue. More Thors in production. Oh, doesn't quite interrupt the Ghost snipes, but might be able to interrupt the Ghost lives. Oh, shoots his own orbital command. Just a death pop there. More spores. Infestors. In position. Siege tank almost one-shotting him. Wow. The Vikings punishing volleys here. But every wave of broodlings. Hydras and lings. Oh, big fungal. Wombo combo. Parabomb gets it. The Vikings taking a lot of damage. Clem quarantines him. Drops down the Viking. It will die there to the broodling. Trying to overrun. Getting on top of everything. The Broodlords raining down. The Thor's pounding through. Is there enough on the ground to deal with this? The Hydras yeet themselves forward with the lunge. The Broodlord still doing so much damage overhead. And SHIN drives Clem back from this last fresh base on the map. The Broodlords, the banks are being exhausted. Thors and Vikings back in production. The Ghost coming from the north side, and well, SHIN has to rebuild the Overlords yet again. It's really becoming quite a tax. He spent, wow, over 5,000 minerals on Overlords so far and counting. But chasing, there's only a single Overseer here, but actually chasing down some more Ghosts. Gonna get on top of them. The Ghost not taken out, cutting off the reinforcements. Clem is back to building Marines. Is there still an Overseer? More Overseers in there. There's still a few Widowmons, but gonna get on top of even more Ghosts. The Zerglings doing a great job. Eventually, the Zerglings will get cleaned up. SHIN, he doesn't know how much is in the bank. Is there a lurker den? More Thors on the way. We know that Clem has over 9,000 minerals, 5,000 gas. SHIN, his mining is running incredibly thin. He will re-expand with his last. There are 8 more broods on the way. 14 in total. Clem, if SHIN was able to break that base before Clem was actually able to mine any of it, but Clem has been mining from the 6 o'clock. There are now 5 Thors on the field, 16 Ghosts. The Hydras, though. SHIN is maxed out one more time. Clem has another army in the bank. There is a dream. I won't lie, it's a distant one. But are there any infestors? 4 infestors. He breaks the base. So Clem working on the 12 o'clock now. The creep is clearing. Where are the infestors? Another Ghost taken down. Where are they? Infestors sliding down from the north. But I won't lie, it is a distant dream at this point for SHIN. 10,000 minerals remain in the bank. SHIN is fighting for his life, whereas Clem is fighting for his bank account. But, well, if that isn't an existential crisis. A lurker den on the way. Maybe a bit on the late side, but I guess better late than never. SHIN might have to build even more Overseers. He's lost 46 Overseers and 11 Overlords. There's still so many orbital commands. Snipe! Oh no! The infestors! All 4 infestors sniped. They wandered too close to the edge. And Clem, Marines added back into the army composition. Not enough of the Ghosts being interrupted. Gonna try to grind forward. The Overseers, Hydras on the lines. The Broodlords! It's not enough! The Thors pound their way through. The Ghosts actually making up the front line. There's not enough to stop this amount of Terran. SHIN was not even remotely close to cost effective. He has lost 26,000 more resources. Clem, after 35 minutes, once he established that 5th base, he just ground down the Zerg into meaty pulp. And just continued doing so. I got my Thors. I got my Vikings. Honestly, it's been a while since I saw someone go Thor Viking. Even against the Broodlords. Usually you see a bunch of Liberators and Ghosts. So a bit more dynamic gameplay. More like Die Zerging gameplay. Jimmy, edit that out. No. But SHIN, he's beaten Clem before, and even there, I guess I can rule some judgment on the map and say, doesn't seem ideal to have a map where siege tanks can cover the entirety of the middle lane at most of the times, but... Game 1. It wasn't easy. It wasn't concise. But clearly ends up going to Clem. But we're headed to the ley lines. Game 2. Clem in the top right corner, SHIN in the bottom left. SHIN, and I gotta, like, is it a real victory for SHIN if he gets adrenal glands? No, that's not how the game works. But you know what? I'm proud of you, SHIN. Now, should you have gone Broodlords like 15 minutes earlier? Maybe. Should Lurkers have maybe been... Now, what strategy did he not try to employ? That Lurker backstab with the Nidus. Now, I feel like you get either or as Zerg. You either get the kind of all-out ground attack style, which is Ultras and Lurker Nidus, and or you get Infestor Broodlord. But if you try to do like Ultra Lurker Nidus into Broodlord, you just run out of money. I mean, SHIN ended up running out of money anyway. But that's only because Clem built 15 orbital commands and wasn't punished. 15, that's a... Well, like his metaphorical father beyond a gratuitous amount of orbital commands. No. Silent. First Overlord. Clem? Kind of an interesting pathing. Sending the SCV out. Maybe trying to evade the Overlord. I think very much so. Actually, sending the SCV in. Overlord going back to that middle ground pervert pillar. Clem likes being as annoying as possible with the first SCV, potentially blocking the third base, turning every single unit, including that first SCV, into a potential weapon to either shut down the economy or whittle it down bit by bit. Reaper bounces the drone over to the side. Bit uncomfortable, though not deadly. Two command centers on the way, already patrolling at that third base. The Queen. Driven back. Little Brenda about. And, wow. Now this is just rude. That single SCV, the dance begins. Gets the... Okay. And the dance ends. Very short dance. Pump up the jam. Starport. Factory. Barracks. Not in that... In fact, in the opposite order, but... Destiny Cloud Fist opener. Yet again. Gonna have those staples. See if he mixes it up. Oh. Queen repels the very first Reaper. And possibly, probably only Reaper. Let's be honest here. Reapers with an expiration date. You can still use Reapers in the later game. It's just, you know, they're better options. Gestures to about half the Terran unit roster. Somehow all ghosts. Okay. A Zergling nibbling on the factory. Not sure how you got here, but getting Wait, C? C is the starport. Researching, very likely cloak. Occasionally players will try to fake it. Clem has been known to do so, but you can't really take the chance. And still you're going to need the spore and lair in 3, 2, 1. What? No lair? Huh. What is this? Oh, okay. Just making sure he gets as many queens as possible. Gonna be a little late on the lair compared to the Banshee timing. But, creep continues to spread. The Hellions not gonna be much to contest it. This time around, Clem not getting nearly as spicy with his early units. Baneling Nest. Baneling Nest already on the way. Skipping the roaches entirely. We barely saw any roaches in the previous game. Well, I guess they were part of the early defense. It's just there was so much game that if the game had just ended at a push at the 16-minute mark, I would have said that was a roach game. But obviously, not exactly what happened. Your Banshee's pre-cloaking. Somehow already taking damage. Maybe trying to sneak in and now join it up. Hey, this is restricted lair space by order of the Hatchery Owners Association. My name is Brenda. All right, you can write that down. Why do they need your name? So they can remember the name. There's 100% reason to do so. All right? What about the extractor? No, I don't. Shit. Sorry. Wow, I blacked out for... Hydralisk Den is on the way. Hydraling Bane will be the order of the day. As skipping those roaches into a full lair tech unit composition, making even more Zerglings. We'll see. Shin sneaking out a few more drones. But always got to be careful at this stage of the game. Clem, ever the opportunistic oncologist, will take out another set of tumors. But Shin will have 4 going on 5 bases. He's going to have 70+ drones. He's going to have Hydralisk range, 1-1, and Baneling speed all coming together. So, Clem forgot combat shield. One of us. Literally the only way he's one. Now remembers that he noticed it on the field, but a delay of combat shield makes those speed banes much more dangerous. 10 less HP is quite a significant number when it comes to banelings that can almost one-shot you. The queens? Well, the Frenchman with another revolutionary tactic for assassinating large amounts of them. I'm going to push them back to the base. At least for now, the Zerglings wrapping around from the north side. Hellbats to block out a counterattack. But banelings rolling in. Chasing down the Marines into the top left corner. And so far, so good. Shin been able to hold the line. 73 drones. 4th base still very much intact. Another double drop, but without that combat shield. Slowing down all the aggression. Creep continuing outwards. Some more Marines obliterated. The Banshee's still alive. They always seem to find a way. But the main attack over to the right flank. Clem taking the center base as his 4th yet again. Finding another opportunity. The hatchery taking some fire. Wings and Banes target fire. Leaves a few Marines behind. A bit dicey. Tries to get the Bane targeting, but more than enough to evade it. At least to overwhelm it more accurately. And again trying, but Clem slipping a bit. Not able to find that aimbot level target fire. Doesn't quite have the numbers. Infestation pit on the way, but Shin notably focusing on building up his army composition well before going for that hive tech potentially. Couple Zergling counter, the Medivacs will keep the SCVs alive, and a bunch of Widowmons added in. 3 more barracks. The Octo-Rax is now online. Clem not all in with it, but instead just making sure he has the maximum amount of M&M production. As he barrels forward. Overseer gonna eat one of the Widowmine hits. Shin really doesn't want to jump on this without an overwhelming number of units. The hatchery's still intact. The Widowmine's dragged into the Terran army as well, but it's not enough. Meanwhile, Wings and a few Banelings rolling through. Drilling Claws now done, making those Widowmines an existential threat to the Lings, Banes, and any Marines caught nearby. Hive is on the way. Banelings targeted. Shin replacing the hatchery immediately, but the Banelings not finding enough. Widowmine connects mostly on the Zerg. Target firing even more Hydraslings and Banes chasing by. But Shin down 25 supply. And at this point, if he's not able to tech switch, the end may very well be nigh. And unfortunately for him, those medevacs can fly, which for many Zerg players is incentivizes an intense sigh, as things have gone incredibly awry. But I'm not gonna lie, Shin has a very high likelihood to die, as these Marines and Marauders and Mines are very close nearby. Like and subscribe. Lurkers burrowing down, trying a different edge of the tech tree. And slicing through. He's gonna stim, he's gonna split, but it's not enough to break through the Lurkers even without range. Shid might be able to slow this down and stall it out for now, but the Widowmine drop of Drilling Claws. Honestly, running away may make it worse. Get off my creep! Oh, they're under the creep. Technically, don't be pedantic! Widowmine's devastating damage to both sides. Clem driven back and actually driven out. I think biting off more than he could chew there. And forced to retreat. Is there a Ghost Academy? Things, well, yes. Any ghosts? No. Cloaking devices have gotten very good. But Clem is still maxed out. The Lurkers don't quite have range yet. There's only 2 of them. And they're already bruised. Transfuse pulls it back together. And Clem gonna target down 1, but 6 more ready to replace them. I don't think he can break through here. Holding it together, that one Overseer over the top. Shin, Overseer, held together. Queens, once again, dealing with endless harassment on the left side of the map. Clem trying to push forward. Forced into the Ghost, though. He's got 4 and 5 bases. Shin hasn't made a serious attempt to smash those bases, but he's been significantly more cost-effective than last game so far. Even up to this stage. But here we go. The Shin does not have adrenal glands, but he does have Lurker range, so that's something. Thankfully, he only has 112 Zerglings, so not too many that would benefit from that adrenal glands upgrade. Fusion Core on the way. Zerglings. Widowmines. Big smacks into the larger groups of Lings, but eventually the push is driven back. But that just means Clem has found another angle. He goes right through the center. Lings and Banes to the north, a whole lot of medevacs to potentially evacuate, but there's still a few Hydras. And, well, this is... That was an optimistic attack. Somehow angles away from everything. The Widowmine eats a hit. A Nidus will be shut down before it can really start. How did it get there? Was there a changeling? Is there an Overseer? Oh. Oh, no! It's a disaster, Clem! Knocked out of the sky into the lava. And loses 30-40 supply while clearly trying to figure out how a Nidus got in his base, and I still haven't figured it out either. I assume there was a changeling or an Overseer flew by and died to a turret, but in the last minute, well, Shin still has lost more minerals, but he's actually knocked out a bunch of the gas-based units. And Clem ended up killing many of his own with those Widowmines and siege tanks, so... A war crime of a Widowmine hit. Just obliterating dozens of Zerglings, but an orbital command gonna be killed incidentally. The Ghosts line up their shots and gun down the rest of the Hydras. Oh no. Chased away, and SHIN. But he gets into the main with the Lurkers. He's able to slice through much of the production and gets out before the Ghosts can line up their shots. Ghost lining up more. SHIN. The income's about even. Overseer, another Overseer taken out. The tax on building Overseers and Overlords on each of these fights really starting to wear on SHIN as the last game went on. And starting to add up on this one as well, as he's lost about 10 of them in total. Not much, but makes up almost 5% of his resources lost. But he just took out something. Clem has a tendency to move so quickly that sometimes he ends up A-moving his own units. Don't know if that's a good thing, but a dozen Overlords just popped. SHIN with most of his side of the map. Still mining relatively comfortably. 86 drones. But Clem locking things down. Fires off another volley. The Lurkers, not willing to face the Ghosts head on. A concave of Ghosts, able to pinpoint the Lurkers and take them down by the 6 o'clock. More Nidus attempts. Tactical Nidus to just maneuver around the map. Widowmines drawn out. The Hydras will deal with the Liberators. No Adrenal Glands, because that would just make it unsporting. Repositioning some of the units with the Nidus. Most used for the Lurkers. Very Brood War-esque sort of strategy. Using the Nidus to reposition the Lurkers to defend your bases. Also just putting that fear in Clem's heart. He has sensor towers covering most of his side of the map, but changelings can always slip through under the radar. Whatever it is the sensor towers use. I'm not sure how that works. Morbidals. 6 orbital commands, 3 more on the way. The Iron Bank is growing. And if the game stalls out, we're going to be once again in that supreme late game scenario where the Ghosts are a lot to contend with. SHIN with a Spire on the way. Will he accidentally hover over his spawning pool at some point? I feel like he has had to do so and decided there's no way. Like, it can't be intentional. He's lost 400 Zerglings. He's got 100 on the field. There's no way a 200 upgrade that gives your Zerglings over 40% more attack speed is not worth it. This is the blood pressure raise I was talking about. All right. I can't be doing this, SHIN. I'm American. I have to afford the health insurance. I can't have a heart condition if you keep not building adrenal gland. What? The Nidus works. Clem. Cletus the Lurker is back. And he's annoying everyone in the main base. There's not too many people here. That's why he managed to get in there. But that's not really the point. SHIN smashes through one base while Clem, drawn back by the Nidus to defend, rips through another down the center. 2 bases dead while Cletus continues to get the damage done in the main. Mostly emotional and generally just tilting, but eventually the Liberator will take it out. Assuming the scan doesn't run out at the least opportune timing. Yep, it's still there. Has to re-siege. Will eventually get the Lurker. Dies a painful and glorious death. SHIN with 109 Zerglings and 0 Adrenal Glands upgrade. We don't mind the scans. There's still those 9 orbital commands, so it's not like Clem can't keep track of things. The bases across the map Shin with dozens more banelings. Couple more planetaries on the way for Clem. The Widow Mines. Oh, some pretty good hits. There's more and more Zerglings. Clem is starting to stabilize. He's building the bank. Shin doesn't have much of one. And yet again, the Liberators and Ghosts. This time around, definitely not. He yanks out some of the Liberators. There's one more Viper with energy. Parasitic Bomb gonna find a lot of damage. Doesn't really quarantine the medevac very quickly. The anti-air, though, is 6 Hydras against 7 Liberators, which, not ideal. A wall of Changelings! He has to gun down the Changelings to get to the Nidus! What a minigame. But I think the Nidus will eventually get taken out. The reinforcements popping out of the racks. Deals with the Changelings. Are there any more among us? It doesn't look like it. Vipers. Yanks in one of the Liberators. Lings and Banes rolling through by the dozen, but the Widow Mines are from downtown. Shin with another 76 Zerglings on the way, 600 in the units lost, having 0 adrenal glands in production. Shin looking in deep Shin right now. More banelings. He has similar bank, which is not a good sign against this Terran composition, the way things have been going. Another wave. Running through. EMP hits all the Vipers. Widow Mine! Oh no. In the Venn diagram of liberation. Somehow some Zerglings get into the main. Another Nidus is popped there. The Vipers and the Bio Army can combine to take out the hatchery to the 6 o'clock. But the Nidus is going to make it through into the main. The last desperate move here out of Shin. He needs this to work. The Zergling's going to start popping out. But a Cloak Ghost. There's no lurkers in there. And by the time any lurkers come through, he's forced a lot of the reinforcements back home. Gonna try to jump the army on the field, but a little bit too slow to do so. Broodlings. Somehow, despite a completely different map, we're slowly but surely ending up in almost the same situation. As the Overseer tax will continue to have to be paid. He's now lost 16 of them. And is actually supply blocked at 192. Clem has 10 orbital commands. He's got 12 Ghost, 7 Liberators. Still plenty of Marines and Marauders. He hasn't needed the Vikings to deal with that Spire. There is a Spire. He's got +1 flyer attack, but I think Shin abandoned the idea of going for Broodlords here. But Vikings on the way. The Knight is spewing out some Hydras for the Ghost to be able to just rip through. Shin still has so much money, but Clem, Mule Mountain is being rebuilt. Ten orbitals. The Queen. Has Clem. 14 kills on that Widowmon. Gets another chunk of the Zerglings. Liberators. Shin going quite deep with this attack. Optimistic. Oh, the medevac's already badly bruised. One gets knocked out of the sky. The weakest point was right down the center. No planetaries to contend with, though. There's one at the third base. Guts some of the Liberators. Gonna pre-scan, knows the threat of potential burrowed banelings, but Shin actually carving his way through. The Zerg overrunning. There's really not that much to deal with here. But then the banelings start to thin out. The planetary distracts the Hydras, and Clem collapses yet again. 48 more Zerglings. Liberators Still continue production. Corruptors on the way. Nearing 1,000 unadrenal glanded Zerglings. Just raw dogging those Zerglings across the map. And so far, it does not seem to be good for their health. Clem with more in the bank. He's dropping mules. He's down to 41 SCVs. The Venn diagram scans. Just keeping tabs on everything. SHIN actually found a lot of success going up the center there. But not enough. That's not where the mining bases are. The middle base is pretty much... Well, there's no gas. Only a couple mineral patches. SHIN still has 3 bases mining. He actually doesn't have the gas. A bit lackadaisical here not to be mining gas from those northern bases. In fact, I would go so far as to call it a mistake. No. I know, crazy, right? But the fact he doesn't have that gas mining. At this stage of the game, now going to try to chase it down. Retreats to the planetary fortress. Widowmines, Corruptors. Ghosts line up their shots. But Clem is not making mistakes here. Now, once again, SHIN has lost 20,000 more resources. More Banes on the way. But the insanity of continuing to rebuild this unit composition again and again and getting beaten back again and again. Oh, he finds a great catch, though. The Widow Mine seems like it took a bigger chunk than SHIN was able to, but chasing now past the planetary fortress. Look away. The Corruptors over the top. And Clem driven back all the way into his base. But SHIN, what does he have to follow this up with? A whole bunch more Zerglings. Clem has expanded to the 6 o'clock. The orbital command's being cut down. But the reinforcements, that was only half the army. SHIN has not been mining gas. He's limited to unadrenal glanded Zerglings. Soberlings. Sadlings. No, not you. You're beautiful. Grab your emotional support Zergling today. Too cute to die. By the 1,000. SHIN now finally getting the gas geysers on the northern bases, but as Clem gets a planetary at his 6 o'clock, Clem closes it out. Very simply, SHIN not putting his entire toolbox together. Would it have made the difference? I don't know. In this game, where he lost 1,000 Zerglings, and really Clem didn't have that massive of a bank. So many times the Zerglings got by. They got some damage. If they had taken another 10 supply out, another base, done it 20%, 30%, 40% quicker, it... Oh, SHIN. So, Clem is able to hold it together, harden his shell, and turtle his way to victory. 2 games in a row. But I don't... Especially that second game. Well... on one side of things, we have the people who are like, every game is the same. All right, every game is the same. We know what's going to happen, how it's going to play out. But on the other side, when players make those mistakes, that if you go back and you watch games from half a decade, even half a decade ago, but 10, 15 years ago, you realize the game is more defined by the mistakes than the plays. But this one, it's not as fun. I think a fun mistake is when a player tries a crazy tactic like a ultra drop or a mass ghost timing and it just doesn't work out. But forgetting to get possibly the most important upgrade in the game, I don't think that's what creates that dynamic situation that's fun to watch and maybe is a little lacking in nowadays StarCraft 2. I don't know. But we can't pin this all on ghost countering everything. All right, as frustrating as that can be. This one... some real SHIN right there. So, thank you for watching. I hope it still made your day a little bit better. A brutal and action-packed Terran versus Zerg. I hope it made your day No, we're going in circles. Got the means of motivation. You also check out Patreon or YouTube memberships. Thank you to our mule tier patrons bringing in those extra minerals. So many extra minerals with those meals. Thank you to Big Jig, Devin, Dor, Kate, Mario, Random Guy, and Suit. To everyone. I hear liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. But hopefully you still enjoy. I hope to see you next time. Make sure to watch This Match Changed StarCraft 2 Forever for quite a rematch between these two. You'll find it one of those games of the year. SHIN fights a little harder. I'll put it that way. Little spoiler. But thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Stay chill.